Well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we're all very busy, particularly with BEAD coming up as well. So go ahead and get started. So first off, I just want to welcome you all to our Getting Ready for BEAD webinar presented by Widelity and Millennium. My name is Michael Irwin. I'm a manager of business development here within our compliance team at Widelity. I'm joined by Tom Stevenson from Millennium. Tom, if you want to give just a brief introduction.
Yes, I'm Tom Stevenson. I'm with the Broadband Solutions Manager for Millennium. I excuse some of the background noise. My 737s were canceled, so I'm stuck here in Denver for a little while on my way to billing. So I'm trying to be try to stay on mute as much as possible. Well, welcome everybody.
Yes, thank you, Tom. So let's go ahead and get started. So just want to give some background on Widelity and on Millennium and kind of how we work together. Here at Widelity, we provide our clients with funding consultation. So that encompasses a number of different things, right? So we assist in writing grant applications for our clients across a number of different sectors. So we have kind of cut our teeth in the telecom sector. So we're talking broadband grant space, we're talking BEAD, right? And we are also working with our partners here at Millennium who handle all of your equipment, your construction, your private funding needs. And we work together kind of hand in hand through webinars, through training sessions, in helping. What we do is we assist Millennium's client base, their customer base, in providing them the proper guidance to be successful in these programs. Tom, do you have anything you want to add related to that?
Just that we've been partnering. We have several partners out there. One of our better partners here is Widelity, and we've been very successful so far at this point of working with our clients. And our mission, and I'll get into that a little bit later, is try to bring you the best resources possible to leverage all the different funding programs that are out there right now. And so this is typically when you talk to us in a meeting with our clients and our salespeople at the same call, first introduction will be with me and Michael and Dave Roberts, who's a geospatial expert or engineer. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tom. So just a little bit of brief background on Widelity. So we're a consulting company that specializes in grant applications, reporting, and compliance. We do a number of things as part of our suite of services, as it were. So that encompasses funding eligibility, making sure that based on your needs, that we're finding the right opportunity for you, making sure that all of the requirements, all of the minutia, all of the footnotes, the CFRs that makes folks eyes roll back behind their head, the type of things. We are experts in that. We are the paper pushers. We are reading the nitty-gritty codes and regulations and things like that. We also assist our client base in ensuring that they retain the value of any kind of funding award, right? So we assist in the reimbursement process, making sure that all invoices, quotes, POs have all the information needed so that our client base then is able to draw down on their funding allocation in a prompt manner. So we have some stats here at the bottom. I won't belabor it too much though, but we have handled large sums of funding in terms of getting our clients reimbursed. It is now over $400 million there. And we have found that over time that our kind of streamlined services and our expertise and best practices can assist in kind of reducing these admin costs that are oftentimes associated with complying with the grant terms and conditions or federal terms and conditions of participating in these programs. Now moving on to Tom with Millennium, going into a little bit more detail here. I know we discussed some of this.
So yeah, just briefly, Millennium, the reason we're partnering with Widelity on this call right here, we're trying to provide data-driven solutions We have our local inventory, our flexible financing for broadband development where you need it. So we'll be looking at a map here shortly. What we're trying to do is coordinate our inventory from warehouse to site, keeping you on schedule and on budget. Our services here with our Millennium ecosystem, excuse me, includes things like geospatial planning, funding support, materials, and rentals. And what we're trying to do is bring experts and end-to-end support, Millennium's professionals, as well as our partners, to help customize solutions.
Great. Moving on to why we're all here, BEAD, right? So I'm going to preface this by saying that a lot of the information that we're going to go over here isn't going to be necessarily new or groundbreaking, right? But the purpose of bringing this up and actually having this webinar is to this is kind of a call to action, right? Now is the time to start really getting prepared for participating in your state's BEAD program, right? Where they leverage their BEAD allocation. So I'm not going to go too much into some of the background here. I'll high-level overview since I think most of us are probably already pretty familiar with it. But again, the purpose is, now is the time to really get into gear. You could even argue that that was yesterday, if you will. So yes, so as I think we all know, BEAD is just about a $42.5 billion program funded via the IIJA. The bipartisan infrastructure law, and it's for broadband deployment in underserved and unserved areas. In terms of the prioritization of where the funds should go in terms of actual construction and deploying infrastructure, unserved locations followed by underserved, and then serving eligible community anchor institutions. Per the BEAD NOFO, the kind of floor in terms of speed requirements is 100 over 20. However, the big priority to make this 100 over 100 symmetrical. And that should be as we think about putting together projects and submitting applications for these BEAD funds, we should be really shooting for the 100 over 100. We should be shooting for going above and beyond what the program rules call for. And the reason being is it makes your application more competitive. This is going to be an immensely competitive program. Just for context here, there are 87 folks on this call right here. That's a significant amount, right? This is a significant amount of funding. There's a great deal of interest. What that tells us at Widelity and in terms of, our experience in grant writing, that means that this is going to be very, very, very competitive, which means that whatever you all can do as applicants to make your project stronger, to make your case stronger, whether that would be providing more matching funds than the floor, right? Going above and beyond there to where you can help the fund administrator, state broadband offices throughout the country stretch their allocation further. That's going to make your application stronger. So a bit here. Wanted to go briefly over some of the BEAD timeline, and yes, this looks confusing because, well, it kind of is, right? And so the idea behind this is to try to break this down to understand how all the different moving parts related to BEAD, how they all fit together, really, right? So where are we now, right? So we are in 2024 here. Every state now has submitted their initial proposal to NTIA, which is a prerequisite to kind of getting their state grant programs going, right? Now, the initial proposal is composed of two volumes, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 1 of the initial proposal deals with the state's challenge process, the process by which they'll take the information, the starting point from the FCC broadband map, and then incorporate stakeholder input to ensure that the state level maps, as it relates to BEAD, are as accurate as possible, determining which locations are unserved, which locations are underserved. Volume 2 of the initial proposal, it goes into more detail on the subgrantee selection process. In other words, how is each individual state intending on running their grant programs? It varies. If you look at the different Volume 2s released by states, it varies in level of detail. Some will elaborate further once they release their proper program guidance. But these are good indicators on where the broadband officials in a given state, where their heads are at, and how they're intending on leveraging these BEAD funds. Once volume 1 of the initial proposal is approved, the state can then begin their challenge process. So determining which locations within the state are unserved and which locations are underserved. Now, once that challenge process is complete, and once volume 2 of the initial proposal has been approved by NTIA, the states can then start their subgrantee selection process again. In other words, this is their grant program, right? What we've noticed is that many states are electing to have a pre-qualification period prior to the actual application period. So what does this mean, right? It means that yeah, it's all about preparation for where we are now. From our vantage point now, knowing that states will have kind of this pre-vetting process, it just reinforces the fact that, you know, it's about getting prepared as early as possible. It's about finding your partners. It's about thinking about what parts of the state, you know, you might want to expand your network out to, and what might the costs be? I know we're early on, and a lot of things are going to be estimates, right? There are a number of supply chain issues. We know all these issues, right? But it's about really sitting down and thinking, you know, really thinking about, okay, what am I looking for? How much do I think it might cost, right? And what does this entail? And really start teasing that out, right? To kind of pull back here a little bit again, once each state's initial proposal is officially approved by NTIA, states have a maximum of 1 year to make their to select their subgrantees. It's not a whole lot of time. I think if any of us are familiar with how state level grant programs have gone before, these things take time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for applicants. It's a lot of work for consultants. It's a lot of work for engineering firms. And it's a lot of work for state broadband offices. This is a big time crunch that we're all in. It's important, you know, I'm saying all this to kind of reinforce the urgency of getting prepared. Now, once the subgrantee selection process has happened, the states then have to complete a final proposal and send that to NTIA for approval. Final proposal basically says that you saw our initial proposal of how we intend to run the challenge process, the subgrantee selection process. Okay, we've ran our subgrantee selection, we've ran our grant program. Here are the results. Here's who we have earmarked funding towards, right? And then from that point, then you will see the funds being released. So in our estimation, and I do want to highlight and qualify that this is kind of our best guess at this time, right? Is that, you know, funds, BEAD funds are highly likely to not be dispersed to subgrantees, to awardees until 2025. Now, the numbers are a bit fungible there, but that's kind of a rough guideline of something that you all can keep in mind. Moving on here. And again, just going to brush over this shortly, but just want to give you an idea of kind of the scope of BEAD and what states are getting what amount of funding. So the allocations do truly range from being, you know, dare I say, astronomical to kind of minimal, right? So we have, for example, Texas here that was allocated about $3.3 billion. That's a significant amount of funding, and that's when we think about the timelines as well and what the time crunch is, not only for you know, applicants, but for the state broadband offices, right? That's a significant amount of funding to earmark and to allocate. And again, to kind of thinking ahead and putting ourselves in broadband offices' shoes, if we can, right? We, you know, whatever we can do to make our application stronger, higher matching contribution, you know, the cost per passing being very competitive, will make their jobs easier in approving those applications, right? We'll also see as well that, you know, some of the states or territories received smaller amounts of funds. So it is kind of it's an interesting mix of what each state has to work with. And again, I already kind of delved into this already, kind of jumped ahead here, but again, just kind of going into the initial proposals and what what that entails. I think for the purposes of interested applicants, interested ISPs in applying for your state's BEAD kind of back grant program, I would highly encourage all of you to review the state's their volume 2 of the initial proposal, get a handle on where the state is, how they intend to leverage these funds, and where you might fit in, where your company might fit in, and how you can assist them in that. I'll also highlight with respect to the volume 1 that a number of states have started or will soon start their challenge process. So this is an opportunity for you to get involved, early on to make sure that, for example, if you have a service area in a given state and you're providing 100/20 service, you want to make sure that that is known throughout the challenge process. So that area that you currently serve isn't going to then be eligible for BEAD funds. So there's overbuilding, right? So these are kind of the strategic questions that we need to answer and start teasing out here early on. A bit. And again, this is kind of the thematic focus of this whole webinar, right? Is what can we all do now to set ourselves up for success as it relates to BEAD, right? And I think one of the big ones is advocating for yourself, whether that be through the challenge process, as I just mentioned, or speaking with the community, determining the area in which you serve, making those connections with local stakeholders, whether that would be folks that run CAIs, hospital administrators, folks at school districts, local school boards, city councils, law enforcement officials. Building these connections now are going to pay off as you're going through the application process, as you're writing the narratives that are associated with the application, as you're basically telling the story of your project, right? Some other things you can do as well, and I'd say should do rather, is to start thinking about what areas you'd be interested in building out your network using these funds, right? Now you won't know for sure which areas are precisely eligible or not, but there could be some triangulation that can happen, right? You can look at the current FCC map, you can look at if the state has a broadband map, you can look at that and start doing some triangulation, right? And some initial scoping, if you will. Mentioned earlier that many states are having a pre-application, pre-qualification periods. Some of those will be mandatory. What does that mean? That means that if you don't participate in that, you won't be able to participate in the actual application process. This is why it's very, very, very important to keep tabs on what your state broadband office is doing, or reach out to folks like Tom and myself who are keeping tabs on all these things as well. And then another big aspect here is thinking about what is required in terms of your financials when you're submitting an application. So audited financials. These are things that if you don't get audited in the normal course of business, it's going to be 1, new, 2, it's going to be costly, and 3, it's going to take time. And to get a handle on that, to start talking to your accountants or your CPAs now to get that set up is going to be crucial. Along similar lines as well, when we talk about the letter of credit, which we'll get into a little bit later, starting to speak with your financial institution, whether it be a bank, whether it be a credit union, to make sure that they, to see where they're at on that, right? Sort of huddle and make sure everyone's on the same page. And I just keep rolling through this, Tom. Tom, if you want to jump in and add if I'm missing something, please do. I can talk and talk and talk about this. So
you're doing a great job right now.
Right.
Keep going.
Okay.
You're on a roll.
All right. So again, I referenced financial modeling. So it's again, it's about having the sense of urgency that we should all be in, right? And thinking about, okay, how much, again, we're early on, so it's hard to be very precise. Like this is something that I can see that we all can see, right? But in terms of getting ourselves in the right mindset, the right headspace, you think about, what would our, if we have an idea of a service area, for example, or a project area, and we have a rough idea of the number of unserved, underserved locations, CAIs and whatnot. What would the cost per passing be if we're doing a fiber build at one, providing 100 over 100 symmetrical service, right? And how would that impact our total project costs? How would that impact our matching contribution? Things like that are important to start thinking about. Also, given that, BEAD is predominantly a reimbursement-based program, it's going to be important to consider that, well, in order for me to draw down on my award, right, or rather my company's award, I need to incur costs. I need to make sure I have some cash on hand to start incurring expenses that I can then get reimbursed for per my grant award. So I need to make sure that not only am I providing a matching contribution, make sure that we have some funds to get going, to actually get the project going. So these are things to think about as well as we're doing this very preliminary financial modeling. And then again, audit financials. The 2 years seems to be the standard. Some states have the latitude to request more. Others will allow for the fact that if you don't get audited in the normal course of business, or perhaps you're a newly formed entity, right? You don't really have those audit financials. You're able to certify at the time of application that you will, at a specified deadline, have them. So there could be some flexibility. Again, I highly encourage everybody, anybody who's interested in BEAD, to review your state's initial proposal volume 2 for more information on this, because it will vary. And as these volume 2s start to get approved by NTIA, we'll learn more and more, right? States will have application guides that we hope will be clear, and templates and whatnot that will provide, the actual, the capital T truth, right? So just trying to give a bird's eye view and an overview of what states are most likely to be looking for, because again, this can be a time-consuming process. And the one thing that we're all kind of running out of here is time, right? Moving on to matching funds here. Let's back up a bit, right? And we talk about the why of matching funds. Matching funds are important for a number of different reasons. One, it's required per the BEAD NOFO. You can't get around it. Okay. But the purpose of it is to show that applicants have skin in the game, to show that there's buy-in there. And it shows commitment. We've seen, I think we all know with RDOF, for example, all the defaults there, that, it's important that you have serious actors, serious folks that want to truly leverage these funds in the way that Congress intended, that NTIA intended. So, that's part of the why from a I guess a policy perspective, to ensure that there's skin in the game, that there's that true buy-in. So the BEAD NOFO calls for a match of a minimum match of 25%. Again, states have some latitude to go higher than that. There's also the ability, based on, if the parts of the project area or the project area entirely kind of is above this extremely high cost threshold, to where the match can be reduced. But I think for the purposes of planning and where we are now, and again, I'm going to highlight that I'm speaking broadly here, right? And different states will vary, and it really is the devil's in the details for each state. But I'm going to speak kind of broadly here in that the more match that an applicant can provide for their project, right? You're going to have a higher chance of success. Now, there's no guarantees in any of this, right? It's going to be highly competitive, but showing that you have more skin in the game, more commitment, that it really shows that you have that buy-in, that makes your application that more competitive. And a concrete way or form that might take is that some states, through their scoring criteria for applications, might assign point values to higher than the 25% match, right? To where you can see the tangible reward in terms of if you self-score your application. So there are tangible benefits to higher match, and that's something that I would encourage everybody to consider seriously, that and not just with the match, with a lot of the requirements, trying to go as above and beyond, as financially feasible, as sustainable, because again, it's about making your application as competitive as possible. Again, touching briefly here on the letter of credit, and again, the why behind the letter of credit is very similar to the why behind the match, right? It's all federal agencies, and you'll hear folks from NTIA use this terminology a lot. They want to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And part of that is making sure that the folks that they intend to award funds to, that there are stakes attached, that there are clawbacks, that there are things that are punitive that could take effect if things don't go right, right? And I don't mean don't go right in terms of there being delays due to weather or supply chain. I mean, don't go right in that project doesn't get off the ground, right? So the LOC kind of serves to do this as well. What the BEAD NOFO says is that the letter of credit must be for at least 25% of the sub-award amount of the grant amount. And this must be from banks with a WISE rating of B- or better, which I highly implore everybody to take a look at the list of WISE ratings. The reason being is because you may be surprised about which banks do not have that rating. And I'll also add that we have links to those ratings at the end of the slides here. The slides will be sent out to everybody who attended, so there's no need to type it out or to take screenshots or anything like that as well. So highly implore all of you to do that. Also add that as many of you may know, NTIA released a waiver regarding this letter of credit, much to everybody's I'd say hopes, dreams, and acclaim. Like it was needed, which essentially allowed for more options in terms of fulfilling this requirement. One of them being the option to secure a performance bond in lieu of a letter of credit. Also allowing states the flexibility to reduce the letter of credit amount based on project milestones. This is something that it was similar to if you all are familiar with the NTIA's middle mile grant program, this was allowable per that as well. So in other words, how would this work? You have it starts at 25% of the grant amount you're seeking, but if you complete, let's say, 30% of the project, you can go back and get a reduced letter of credit, which then frees up more capital for your business. And that can go down to as low as 10%. So it's a bit more flexible. Also want to add as well that credit unions can now issue the letter of credit so long as they have that WISE rating as well. Now that will be the end of my part. Thank you all. I appreciate your time and attention. I'm going to turn this over to Tom.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Michael. As you can see, you can see right now why we're partnering with Michael and his team. Very energetic, very much into this. So we have Millennium. This is a map here of all of our warehouses. But I wanted to show you this. Our company has been growing exponentially over the last couple of years. There's a good reason we've been doing this, and where we have warehouses, so we're closer to our clients. Next slide, please. It's because of our mission statement. We have our core values right here. So at Millennium, we try to be more than just a supply house, but we try to be a good partner with our clients. We're very passionate. We're very curious about our partners, about the needs. We're constantly asking questions. What are your pain points? How can we help? We're very caring. And also, we try to be very dependable. That's bringing our warehouses, our material supplies, our teams closer to our clients, and to make us more dependable and to be able to answer your needs on the drop of a dime. Next slide, please. So at Millennium, because of, I wanted to back up a little bit. Back in COVID, a lot of our customers, a lot of our folks, we were in the rural areas, and I personally was working with another company, working with several rural communities, and we experienced a very frightening thing when we had our school children in the rural areas couldn't go to school. I know I had personally had school districts I worked with had 90% of the kids didn't have access to internet. Therefore, they were not able to attend school during COVID. So our CEO, our CEO and our executive team on there, they've decided to create the Millennium ecosystem and want to make sure our clients are first to market to take full advantage of all the funding that's going on, but also to help them expand their networks, especially in the rural area. Basically, a lot of what we're doing is here, we're passionate about is actually closing that digital divide. Next slide, please. So what we've done is we've put together a number of teams, all one big team actually, but a number of groups together of professionals. And so first we're going to start out with geospatial planning, laying the foundation for the project success. As Michael talked about earlier, right now, you better know where you're at, where you're going to go, and you should start the planning right now because the clock is starting to tick off right now. We also have our infrastructure funding. I'll get into that a little bit later on to help with the letter of credit, with the gap stop funding, in addition to all the materials for their warehouses, which, by the way, we are still looking at other markets to get closer to our clients. And one of my favorites right here is the rental and leasing. We're seeing a lot of the smaller companies now moving into a lot of our WISPAs, fixed wireless providers, now moving into building fiber optic network. And also with the letter of credit, we can help with that. Help with the easy paying. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So let's get into geospatial. As we started earlier, it all starts with a plan. We've got an excellent group. We do a lot of with excellent outside plan engineers. We're using data-driven intelligence that helps save time, money, and headaches before the project even begins. Construction efficiency. A lot of our clients, we hear the pain points. Right now, it's very competitive out there with labor costs going up. Even though material is kind of stable and material costs are kind of stabilized, a lot of our clients are still looking at a lot more efficient ways to build out their networks. And even though there's a lot of funding out there, it's very, very competitive. And as Michael's talked about earlier, with the high level of match, so it's not as lucrative as a lot of people think. So although it is a nice golden carrot to wave to get the providers to build out their networks, you still have to be very cost conscious and very efficient. With that, we're able to sit down with the clients and look at several different techniques, different types of networks, and help do a feasibility study. Again, this is through our geospatial team. Next, please. Next slide. So getting into one of the areas that one of my areas right here, we have our infrastructure funding. My particular job at Millennium is actually helping track the funding grant opportunities, keeping track of everything, where the funding's at, some of the details in the different states, working with our sales folks or our clients in tracking all this. And then as we reach out to our clients to help provide that grant guidance. Another nice thing that we've started too, noticing we've got a lot of, as Michael talked about, we're now into a reimbursement phase of the grants. The days of money up front, getting a grant, getting 10, 15, 20% up front, those days are gone. And so it's much more prudent upon the provider or the person doing the grantee, accepting the grant, to be very conscious of the financials. And right now, our Millennium Fund, our infrastructure fund right now, we've got over $75 million out in what I call gap stop funding for several of these projects. And that fund is expanding quickly and fast. So the other thing too is, like I said, we're also supplying the bridge funding, helping our clients get to the market early. And once you get the grant, in a lot of cases, once we get into these grant applications, sometimes you got to hit 10% of your build outs, or you might not see payments for the first 6 months. So it's quite a strain on our clients. So this bridge funding is quite helpful. Next, please. Yeah, in the as far as the grant guidance, I'd like to go through the process here, how we work with this, and Michael. So What happens normally is we'll have a provider or client come forward, so they're kind of interested in the BEAD funding and looking at the different aspects of it. So what we do is we have myself and David Roberts would sit down with the clients along with the salesperson and sit down with the client, decide what they're looking at, what aspects of the ecosystem, Millennium ecosystem you'd like to work with. And then from that point on, we would then start working with our client and start setting up separate meetings, whether it be with geospatial, with a grant writer like Michael, Widelity, or actually talking with our geospatial team, and then in some cases also our rental teams, so our rental and leasing teams. Next, please. And then the one of the things that our material management, one of the things we're looking at too, and again, cost is a very important thing. Time is a big factor. As you've noticed on that map I showed previously, we have over 20 locations now where we have materials out, where we're closer to our clients. Our warehouses are closer to our clients. But we also got a very good, robust sales team right now. We have a lot of good team, a lot of good salesmen out there, a lot of good managers. And they're able to work with their clients, working on demand forecasting, inventory management, delivery assistance. And so these are some of our more robust options that we have for our clients to help with their build outs. Next slide, please. And as you can see, a lot of our clients are now looking for a little bit more expertise, like to get into especially with labor costs and techniques and being in a competitive nature. So we've also not only partnered up with folks like Widelity on the grant writing, some of our other engineering folks, but also we've got quite a close relationship with a lot of our suppliers. So when our customers comes to us and they have specific questions, we're more than happy to line them up directly with the manufacturers and start helping them do a feasibility study, look at the engineering, and to move forward with a much more robust and more cost-efficient network. Next slide, please. One of my favorites here is rentals and leasing. I've worked in rural areas now for about 12 years, and I've worked with a lot of fixed wireless providers, and now seeing them move forward into the fiber optics. I've been preaching that to them for a long time, and we've had a lot of the smaller providers now getting and building out their own fixed wireless networks in these rural areas. And in the case with looking at the letter of credit, when you look at some of these fundings opportunities like the letter of credit, that puts quite a strain on you when you have to go out and buy more equipment. So what we found out is it's kind of it's easier on your finances if you can lease that equipment first or rent it to see if this is something you can use. But the nice thing about Millennium also is we've had people that can go into the field with you and help train you how to use that equipment for the first time users. Next, please. And so, like I said, beyond equipment, we're ready with our shipments. Leasing and strategic spend. It's affordable long-term strategic fees for frees up your cash flow and helped term lease to with lease to own, options, and also purchasing options. Next, please. So this is the part here where this is the reason why we're partnering with Michael, and I want to emphasize here, just recently we've got over 5 states right now have opened up and started their challenge process. For those providers out there, I want you to pay close attention to it. I want to make sure that this is the part where they're selecting those eligible and ineligible areas. So I want to make sure, emphasize with you that make sure that you're paying close attention, going to these webinars, looking at the maps. If you need assistance looking at that map, get hold of us. Our geospatial team, our engineers, they can help look at that, look to see what's eligible, also help pre-plan. The NOFA coming out, I'm going to be honest, I got a speaking tour in Montana tomorrow. They just released their NOFA the other day, and they're going to start their pre-application period on open up that portal on January 15th. And that's going to be open for about 30 to 45 days. And so I've got other states like Colorado, Kansas, Virginia, and Louisiana. They're already out there. They're starting to open up the process. So it is a call to action. It is very important that you reach out to us and we start these conversations. And we're doing this because we're partnering with what I feel is some of the best folks in the field. And once this BEAD kicks off by March, April, a lot of these folks are already going to be tied up. So what we're doing here is we're reaching out to our clients, putting on webinars like this, so that so that we can bring you some of the best people with the highest success rates of going after grant funding, engineering, and leasing. I want you to take advantage of it, because once this kicks in later in the summer, it's going to start to get thin on the labor side as far as these consultants in the engineering teams, because they're going to get buried. So again, this is a call to action. So and like I said, we like partnering with people like Michael, because he's so enthusiastic and so knowledgeable about things like this. So Michael, I'm going to turn it back over to you for
Yeah,
Q&A.
no, I appreciate that, Tom, and I just want to reiterate what you were saying, in that, this is very much a call to action, and I think that, before we get into questions here, but I think, what do we want the takeaways from this webinar for you all to have, right? Is that this is going to be a fast moving, at times complex process with a lot of moving parts, right? Particularly if you're an interested applicant across a number of different states. Things won't totally be consistent. And want everybody to have that motivation to kind of, I think I've said this a number of times, and, slightly in jest, but I think that, I think that after this, and thinking about this and the amount of work that is going to be needed from everybody and all stakeholders, you should start to feel the beads of sweat forming on your forehead. I guess pun intended, but because this is a tall task, not just from a provider perspective, from a stakeholder perspective, but this is a huge policy push from the federal government here. I mean, this has been compared to an initiative akin to the Rural Electrification Act. Like this, these are high stakes here. This is a significant amount of funding. We have a mandate, as members of this broader kind of telecom ecosystem, to make sure that these funds are deployed in the way that we all want them to be deployed, in the right way. And where do we do our part? By, Widelity does our part by writing the best applications for our clients, making sure that they're meeting all the requirements, and making sure that, equipped with the tools that, to be successful. And Tom's part and the folks at Millennium, making sure that, again, in getting your equipment, providing the private funding support to make the kind of out-of-pocket burden, a little less burdensome, right? So, we all have a role in this, right? From construction companies to ISPs to consultants to geospatial firms to accountants. Like, there's a role for all of us. And, the hope is that we're all working very hard this year, and it'll be a tough year, but that it will pay off. And in when they announce awards, we'll all be successful, and we get these networks built out. And with that, I will open it up for questions. Please throw them in the chat if you have them as we go. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Caitlin to read a couple of those out for Tom and I.
Yes, so let's start right from the top. So the first question is about fiber splicing companies. So are service providers such as construction companies that provide fiber splicing or placement, such as laying fiber, able to apply? Are there any grants for these companies? And does the size of the company matter?
Yeah, so I could start with that one, and Tom, if you want to add some stuff as well. So as far as BEAD goes, companies like this aren't eligible for funding, right? Now that's not to say that there's no place for these companies within this broader ecosystem, right? I mean, what my recommendation would be is that if you are one of these companies, I assume you are if you're asking the question, to reach out to your client base, to ISPs, within your kind of service territory, to work with them, to start giving them, to the best of your ability, estimates of how much your services would cost related to projects and things like that. So there is a role, of course, there's a role here, but in terms of specifically being awarded grants, for these sorts of entities, there's really not an on-point type opportunity for that, at least as far as BEAD goes. Tom, did I capture all that, or you want to add?
Yeah, you did quite well. Yeah, these are for companies that actually build the networks and maintain the networks. And in all cases, part of the prerequisite is you've got to prove that you can build the networks and that you've been able to build and sustain a network. So that's one of the key requirements right here. But I will say we do have clients and construction clients, and I just took a call today that they want to sit down. They want to look at see who's been winning some of the fundings. They want to be able to reach out and expand their customer base. Um, they reached out to one of our salespeople, and then he reached out to me, and so we're going to set up a call Monday or Tuesday, and we're going to look at the different states, some of the different clients he's looking at to see whether or not they won funding and who's in play. So we're more than welcome. Yeah, we're more than happy to work with the construction company. You're a key part of our base, and we'll try to do the best we can to help you also expand your sales and your networks. Yes.
Great. Do we have another, Caitlin?
Yeah, this one is from Dan Berkowitz. Are you estimating when construction will start for each state so that the supply chain is ready?
You want to take that one, Tom?
Sure. So what's going to happen is that the challenge process for, let's just say, I'm going to use Missouri because, and I know Louisiana's already kicked off, and so is Virginia, Kansas, Colorado. So the 365-day process has started. And part of the process, so you're going to go through what we're going to call 2, sometimes 3 grants. The third round, imagine 3 rounds, and then there'll be a lot of negotiations going on, and that's going to have to happen over the next 365 days. The states, I will say, are going to be challenged in a lot of cases to be able to get that done, although there are a couple good efficient states out there with good grant programs that have proven that. But then what will happen then is all the awards, before the awards are given, they're going to be sent into the NTIA in Washington, and they're going to be reviewed. Then after they're reviewed, then the NTIA will cut the rest of the funding loose for those projects that are coming to the state. My friends at the NTIA say that's going to take a couple of weeks. We'll see if that happens. So if that gives you a good idea, once you see the kickoff, it's going to be at least 12 to 13 months, I would say, before construction starts, before the awards are finally announced.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Tom, and I'd say so. I mean, I think it's, to be, sometime for some states in 2025, but again, this is a ways out, as it stands now, and would love to be more precise about it because we know there, since the pandemic, there have been supply chain issues, and now, this is a significant amount of funding that's going to be deployed that will continue to strain, already kind of strained supply chain. So, very cognizant of that. But, I think 2025, some point, again, for some of the states, probably later into 2025, frankly, is when maybe construction can start. Any other questions, Caitlin?
Yes, this is about the initial proposal volume 2. Are there any states where it has already been approved?
Yes. Per the NTIA, they have a very nice they have an initial proposal dashboard on their website, and that is going to be linked in these slides as well for you all to take a look at on your own time. But that tells us this information. So far, we have the state of Louisiana, which I guess would get the gold star here in terms of having their initial proposal in its entirety approved. So that's volume 1, and that's volume 2. There are other states out there that have a number of other states, namely the ones that Tom mentioned, that have had their volume 1s approved, meaning that they can begin the challenge process, but not quite yet their volume 2s, if that makes sense. And again, I know we talk about the volumes and the proposals, and it's a lot, right? It's a lot of terminology and jargon, but just to go back on what the volume 2 is and why it's important, the volume 2 of the initial proposal is what details how the state intends on selecting their subgrantees. basically. So who's going to win the grant, right? And by what criteria is kind of the whole point of the volume two. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one more. Uh, will there be other financial capability requirements besides the audited financials?
Yes, and they will vary, but a number of things that you'll see, and this is common to a lot of grant programs, is that there will need to be some sort of certification from a person within your company who has the capability to make true decisions, right? To make financial decisions, basically attesting that one, you have the financial wherewithal capability to carry out a project of whatever size and scope it is. And that's generally kind of a statement with a signature, kind of endorsing it, that, right? But something more complex here is that you're going to have to determine, what you're going to have to create a pro forma, financial projections for the project. What does it show? Why is this important? It's important because it shows the financial sustainability of the project long term. Again, calling back to the kind of RDOF example, is that in TIA, each state broadband office wants to make sure that when these funds are deployed for a project, that the project is going to be sustainable long term, that the network funded by these grant funds will be in existence, in the long run. I mean, we talk about fiber as being future proof, right? And BEAD is predominantly a fiber deployment program. So we want the networks to be as future proof as the technology, if that makes sense in terms of the pro forma. And again, projections are hypotheticals to a certain extent, right? These can be challenging. So I implore each and every one of you, if you're interested in applying for BEAD funds and trying to tease out this pro forma, is to speak with your accountants, your CPAs and whatnot, your CFOs to try to map this out. Tom, do you have anything to add on that front?
Yes, we typically, you can also reach out to us and we can kind of point you in the right direction where to find that information about what's going to be required. The NTIA has specifically set aside different section numbers. You'll see those all on the BEAD plan. What is it, 2.4.11 and 14? You'll see that. I'm getting to memorize these, so as I'm going through these. And the other thing too, that what we're looking at is you're going to see some of the information. Some of the states, what they're going to do is they're looking at doing what I want to call a financial stress test to see how big of a grant you can actually handle, what you can financially handle. That's before you even go into the grant process. So they want to make sure that they don't give you too much. They don't want to give you too large of a grant that where your finances don't match up. Again, they've been burned badly, as we talked about earlier, like the RDOF. The RDOF started out at $9.4 billion. And I think with all the census block turned in and everything else, I think it's down to just under $6 billion. So it's stung quite badly. And so that's why you're seeing this reaction. And also some of the states in their grant programs have actually done this reimbursement process, and they've been quite successful, even to where they don't even get quite as stringent on the letter of credit.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, we got
listeners?
another one in. So is the 5-year action plan a good source for a timeline from each state? Some of them show when they estimate construction will begin, like Louisiana.
I would say that that's a good benchmark, right? Now the 5-year action plan is kind of the executive summary of what the state wants to do with broadband, kind of writ large. And if there are timelines in there, I would use that as a kind of a barometer, as a benchmark. But I would definitely keep in mind that there are a number of moving parts here. So hate to be wishy-washy, right? But things are always subject to change. But if you're looking to kind of orient yourself in the right direction, I would definitely, any materials provided by the state. So either that would be their 5-year action plan, or some states have sketched out a rough timeline in their volume 2 initial proposal. And, I would take that as an approximation, as an estimate. And I think that could help with planning purposes.
Yeah, I agree with that too. In a lot of states, they're actually, once they start this challenge process, they will have a number of, put on a number of webinars, a lot of training sessions. And also they have teams working with the awardees or the applicants to actually go through the process and help you understand it clearly. Um, there is a big emphasis, and the NTIA has, I believe, set aside some of the funding for this to make sure that they do a good job, states do a good job of helping educate those potential applicants.
Right, exactly. And I'll add one more thing as well, something that, I know that here at Widelity we follow. I know that Tom follows us heavily, but please, should be one of the first places you check every day when you go into work, right, is your state broadband office's website. That is to find out about these webinars that Tom referenced. There are plenty of workshops. There are opportunities to, share your thoughts, right? And I also encourage you to reach out to state broadband officials. Many state broadband offices have really staffed up. NTIA's helped with that in terms of their BEAD planning grants that they issued last year. But many states are increasing their kind of institutional capacity to manage this large amount of funding that they have to give out to applicants, right? So reach out. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to reach out. They're there to help. Can also reach out to myself or Tom, and we're happy to reach out. We talk to these folks all the time. Tom knows people in some of these offices. So, sometimes it's better to reach out through a third party. So the broadband official doesn't, know, that it's this company X asking this question. Happy to do that. Happy to assist in that way. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that too. That's for what Michael's saying. And a good example that the state teams want to hear from the potential applicants. And one of the things they heard earlier in this process was a letter of credit. And it was all the information they were getting from the providers and discussing what the issues and what a strain that was going to be and how it was going to affect. Is they were the providers, the clients were the driving force in that change in the letter of credit. So that's so they are listening and they are taking action based on this. So
Great. Caitlin, are there any more questions, or I know I want to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time here. We just have a couple minutes left.
That's about it. We
Oh.
are at 12:58 on the clock. If you have any closing statements, otherwise we can wrap it up.
All right, awesome. Well, again, please reach out to us. Either one of us, both of us, we are here to help. And again, here at Widelity, we assist our clients throughout the entire life cycle of a funding opportunity. So us, in conjunction with our partners at Millennium, can help you identify, which funding opportunity is best for you. I know we're talking about BEAD, but there are others. So we're happy to guide you through that and let you know, okay, what do I need to get all my ducks in the row now? So don't have to scramble and burn the midnight oil, and then an application portal crashes, and then you're really just out of luck, right? So please reach out to us. We can assist, again, through the initial planning stages, the grant writing itself, which can be very challenging, telling the story of the project. And us at Widelity, we're very passionate about positioning your project, your application in the best light, and really using our creative writing skills that we have here. We have over 100 consultants that are very adept in all things government compliance. All that boring stuff is not boring to us. And we are here to help across the entire way. And then additionally, after you win, we can help you with that reimbursement process to make sure that's streamlined. And finally, I just want to note that these slides will be going out to everybody. All these links here, they are hyperlinks, so you can go and check out these resources, on your own time. And again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Tom, I'll let you have the final word.
yes, well, thank you, Michael. And again, you can see why we're very enthusiastic about partnering with Michael and his team, their Widelity. And again, if you have any questions, and for some of our clients, you may just be deciding whether or not you want to bother with BEAD, whether this is worth your time. And so you can consult with us, reach out to one of our salesmen, and they'll reach out to make contact. If you want to contact me or one of our other team directly, feel free. But it's free of charge. We're going to make sure that you're getting the best advice and you're going in the right direction. And then if you do decide, our job is to help you, point you in the right position, help line you up with some of the best partners to make you to increase your success in going after this grant funding, to make sure that it's actually feasible for you and profitable for you. So, and we need to close that digital divide, so we're going to do everything we can to help expand this. So very good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Again, please reach out if you have any questions at all, want to run something by us, we are available. And yeah, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And yeah, excited to see what comes with BEAD. All right, everybody. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.